Welcome back to Insights at DDLynn Designs, a unique twist in the ancient art of wire. This is DDLynn, and I thought I'd show you how to do a really quick 10-minute bead wrap that you can use as a pendant or make two and have earrings. And it's just a really quick also gift if you're running out the door and need to give something to someone that you're thinking about. It's just super fun and really easy, and you can take off on it in many different ways. What I'm going to be doing today is elaborating on my post that I just put out, letting you guys know that I was going to do a 10-minute bead wrap. Normally I would cut 7 inches, but today I have 10 because I'm going to elaborate on this one a little bit more than what I posted. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm using round wire. You want to make sure that your wire is going to fit in your bead, okay? So that's really important. So check out what you've got first and find a bead that's got a big enough hole to at least hold 20 gauge, okay? So I'm just going to make a spiral, and I'm going to use my needle nose, and I'm going to really come off that tip and curl it in as much as I can and get a really tight curl on it. Now, before I close this off, I always want to give you inspiration to other things that you can do. I'm going to be making a spiral on the bottom. If you wanted to hang another bead, so you want to add another bead from the bottom, then you would leave a loop big enough to add your other bead or put in a jump ring and drop a bead from there. I am going to close this off. So I'm going to squeeze this wrap, and let me blow this up. So this tiny little curl I made here, and my hands are so dirty, you guys. I've been working with sterling all morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off that tip there, and I'm going to squeeze it in to itself. And I'm rolling it down and in to itself. So I just have this little tiny, very small hole there. And then if you haven't done spirals before, it's just, the idea is to roll your wrists together forward, okay? So I'm gonna hold very close, and I'm on the outside arc of the loop, this little tiny loop. Got my pliers on the outside arc of that, and I'm just gonna turn my hands in and roll this into itself. Then if there's a little bit too much gap, I'll just squeeze it in a little bit more. And then I'm just gonna keep rolling until I decide how big I want my spiral. You really want it as tight as you can get it. I think I'm going to stop there. Take a look at my bead. And then let me tell you what size bead I'm using. You can use any size, but this little guy is coming in at about 11 millimeters in circumference. Actually, more than that. Sorry, you guys. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it just depends. You can use a little bead or not. Now, you have 2 options, and I'm hoping that I can get my bead through here, because if you notice my wire, it's pretty mangled. I'm using some scrap wire that I've been using all morning for ideas on wrapping something, and I've just been playing with it a lot. I use scrap wire a lot, or copper, before I go off on the silver, because silver is so expensive. It's not a wire that you want to practice with. So hopefully I can slide my bead in there. So let's take a look. And all those little bends in there won't affect my ability to slide this down. See, it's catching up already. So I'm always really happy when these things happen, and I'm just pulling it through to see if I want to do any more of a spiral. So now that I know that that's working out, you have a couple of options here. You can either bend the spiral up and over on top of your bead. So if you wanted to do that and you didn't have it hanging from the bottom, where I would straighten this out so it's perpendicular to the line here, you would just simply make sure that you have enough gap space so that you can move it up and over the bead. So let's do that, because it's really easy to figure out this part right here, that you would just be hanging this from the bottom. And what you would do is you want to line that spiral up. So I'm coming very close. And I'm just going to bend it back. So I'm straightening it up so it sits nice and level. And then I'm just going to roll it in a little bit. Now, as I mentioned, if you want to leave it like this, you can. So you have this beautiful spiral on the bottom, or you want to give yourself some gap space, because remember, this has to wrap up and over the bead, right? So I'm going to turn it this way because it's cupping in down here. So I'd rather have, can you see how that's cupping in a little bit? And that's from spiraling it in, and that's just natural as we're spiraling. So I'm going to bring it up over my bead. So down here, I'm giving myself about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just simply going to bend the neck straight up. And then I'm going to pull my wire down to make sure that it's flush against the base of the bead, and I'm just pushing it over my bead. So you have something like this. So here's your other option. Here's some more inspiration. If you wanted to hang a bead from here, you would simply slide this down, and you would have more gap space then. And you would cup this in, or squeeze this in down here to make a loop. And then that way you can attach another bead. So I'm always going to give you lots of inspiration. If you're new to my channel, I'm very detail oriented, and I'm trying to build my page, y'all. So I'd really appreciate, it takes 1 second to give me a thumbs up if you like this tutorial. Appreciate your feedback and your comments. So now I'm going to make my bail. And I'm going to leave myself a little gap space because I want to do several wraps around the neck. So I'm leaving just a little less than 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to bend that wire towards me. And then I'm going to get my 6-step bail making pliers. And I'm going to use my number 3. So here's the number 3 right here. And I'm going to put this in here. And I'm going to roll this wire towards me. Then I'm going to turn my pliers around. I'm going to adjust my pliers and swing my leg here of the wire around so it's coming out the side. Then to straighten up the loop on my bail, I'm going to rock my pliers in so that the bail is in line with the neck. And I'll show you what that is in a minute. Then I'm going to straighten out this wire. So now you should have something like this. So now I'm going to get my flat nose to hold the loop, and I'm going to hold right where it's coming above the neck. And then I'm going to start to swing my wire around. And because 20 gauge round is soft, I'm going to use, sorry you guys, I was out of frame there. Let's get down to this one right here. I'm using my fingers just to give myself an advantage and start swinging that wire around. And then I'm going to bring in my pliers, and I'm going to tighten up that neck. So I'm just going to crimp that wire in, and you can see the wire over here moving up. Just going to tighten it around that neck. So I'm going to use my fingers again just to rock this wire around. And I'm going to bring it around, under and through. Now here's a really cool tip. If you find, first of all, I'm going to tighten it up. If you find that your wraps are going off on an angle, just take your pliers and anchor them off the top of the plier here and come underneath the neck and just squeeze them up. And that will straighten them up. I'm going to tighten that wire up a little bit more. And then I'm just going to keep bringing my wire around until it meets the bead. Just going to swing it around. Tighten it up. And then swing it around. When you have a lot of length, it's easier sometimes to use your fingers. So here's what we have so far. So now I'm going to get a little more decorative. So I'm going to swing my wire over the top of the bead, and I'm going to start wrapping it on top of the bead, like I'm making another spiral. So I'm holding relatively close to my wire. And I'm just going to keep following the outline. So I'm kind of pulling the wire down a little bit on an angle. And if it's easier, keep turning your bail or keep turning your bead around so you can see that you're following. And if you notice again, I'm going kind of on a downward angle so that I don't ride up on my wraps as I'm going around. So I'm just going to keep turning it around, and I'm just kind of gently pulling on a downward angle. Now I just saw that starting to slide up. So I'm just going to come in with my pliers and I'm going to push it down. There we go. So now I'm going to grab my pliers because I'm not getting the right tension and I don't want to keep pulling that wire up. So I'm going to come out a little bit. I'm going to get my pliers in here again and pull that down. I need different pliers. I need to use these to hold it, and I need my big ones to pull this down. There we go. So I'm going to keep doing that. Now, you should have something like this. So you have a couple of options here. We can either take this excess wire that we have here, that's about an inch and a half, and we can spiral it back in and make a little spiral on top. Or you can actually take this wire around the front of the bead here and create a nice scoop and wrap it around underneath here, the bottom here. And then you could tie it off and have a little loop down there. I'm going to make another spiral. So to get this spiral to go in the direction that I want, I'm going to come even further out because I'm going to be bringing this wire in towards the center of the bead. So I'm going to really anchor it way away. That made way away. That's really not a word. Far away from the center. here, because again, I'm going to be spiraling in. So what I'm going to do is straighten this out a little bit to see if I need that much length. And I'm thinking that might make it a little big, so meaning it will really come right into this spiral here, which is fine. Or maybe I want it a little bit smaller. So I want this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to cut this down to about 1 inch. And then as before, I'm going to spiral this in. So I'm going to get my needle nose and I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. Make a little tiny, tiny loop. Now I'm going to show you another technique. You can just trim off the tip once you get your loop. And then get your flat nose and squeeze that in. And you want to roll it as you're doing this. So you're kind of on the tip here and underneath the loop, and you want to roll it as you're squeezing it in. It's a very small little movement because I really want that closed off. And then as before, I'm just going to start rolling it in. So I'm just going to keep rolling. You want to watch that you don't lift up on your little swirls up here on top. And you just want to keep rolling. Now I'm going down now as I'm pulling this spiral in. And I'm really happy that I cut that back to 1 inch because it's going to line up perfectly with the other spiral. Now, if you have too much wire, I'll show you another little technique or trick. All I'm going to do is on the bottom here, and it's almost perfectly lined up, but it's just a little much, just a little tiny much offset. I'm not using the right words this morning. So all I'm going to do is just move the bottom over just a little bit. I'm just going to use my thumb to move it over. And there you have it. Isn't that adorable, you guys? And it would make such a cute earring, but it's a perfect little easy pendant. That's really all there is to it. And then you would just put in your chain or your leather cord, and you have this darling little bead pendant or earrings. I hope you enjoyed that, everybody. Please give me your feedback. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I hope you all have a wonderful, magical wire art day. Bye for now.